Welcome to our video about the fascinating world of Pokemon and their placement on the Tree of Life. Today we take a closer look at Marowak and its relationship with all bird Pokemon. Ready? Lee, let's go. Dinosaurs are a group of terrestrial vertebrates that dominated continental ecosystems during the Mesozoic era, from the late Triassic about 235 million years ago to the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary around 66 million years ago. In classical taxonomy, dinosaurs are considered an extinct branch of reptiles, although their morphology clearly differs from that of modern-day reptiles, and they are not closely related to most living reptiles, particularly lizards and snakes. From a cladistic point of view, which is now the scientific standard, both sauropsids, sometimes referred to as reptiles as a whole, and dinosaurs include birds, which evolved from small theropod dinosaurs. Therefore, not all dinosaurs became extinct during the mass extinction at the end of the Mesozoic era. Birds represent a specialized lineage of dinosaurs that survived to this day. This lineage proved extraordinarily adaptable and successful. With around 11,000 living species, birds make up roughly 1/3 of all modern terrestrial vertebrate species. They occupy every terrestrial ecosystem and even include groups like penguins that are highly specialized for life in and around water. In zoology, which mainly focuses on modern animals, and especially in ornithology, birds are still usually considered a distinct class and not categorized as dinosaurs or reptiles. This is also true for everyday language. Even in modern vertebrate paleontology, an informal distinction between birds and traditional dinosaurs is common. To reflect cladistic reasoning, these traditional dinosaurs are referred to as non-avian dinosaurs. Paleontologists gain knowledge of dinosaurs through the study of fossils, including preserved bones, skin and tissue impressions, and trace fossils such as footprints, eggs, nests, gastroliths, stomach stones, or fossilized droppings. Dinosaur remains have been discovered on every continent, including Antarctica, because they first emerged when all land masses were united in the supercontinent Pangaea. Until the mid-20th century, dinosaurs were considered cold-blooded, sluggish, and unintelligent creatures. However, numerous studies since the 1970s have revealed that they were active animals with elevated metabolic rates and adaptations enabling social interactions. Dinosaurs have become a part of global pop culture and feature prominently in hugely successful books and films like the Jurassic Park series. The English anatomist Richard Owen established the taxon Dinosauria in 1841. According to modern cladistics, dinosaurs include all descendants of the last common ancestor of Triceratops and birds. Alternatively, some propose defining dinosaurs as all descendants of the last common ancestor of Megalosaurus and Iguanodon, two of the three genera named by Owen when he first described dinosaurs. Both definitions encompass the same taxa within the dinosaur group: theropods, bipedal carnivores; sauropodomorphs, mostly large herbivores with long necks and tails; ankylosaurs, quadrupedal herbivores with heavy armor; stegosaurs, quadrupedal herbivores with bony plates; ceratopsians, quadrupedal herbivores with horns and frills; ornithopods, bipedal or quadrupedal herbivores. The extinct dinosaur groups displayed an enormous diversity of forms. Some were herbivores, others carnivores. Some were quadrupeds, four-legged, others bipeds, two-legged, and still others, like Iguanodon, could move both bipedally and quadrupedally. Many had armor, horns, bony plates, shields, or dorsal sails. Although they are known for their gigantic size, their dimensions varied considerably. Many dinosaurs were only as large as a human or even smaller. However, this diversity in form was essentially limited to terrestrial habitats. Only a few species show certain adaptations to life in or around freshwater. Non-avian dinosaurs likely did not dominate the airspace. Pterosaurs are a distinct group. How well Archaeopteryx, often referred to as the first bird but still quite dinosaur-like, could actively fly, i.e. generate dynamic lift, remains debated. Accordingly, it is assumed that its yet unknown, possibly already bird-like direct ancestors could not actively fly well or at all. The four-winged dinosaurs of the early Cretaceous, such as Microraptor and Changuraptor, which belong to a different evolutionary lineage than Archaeopteryx, also probably could not fly actively, but instead glided from tree to tree. By 2006, 527 genera of non-avian dinosaurs had been scientifically described, from an estimated total of around 150 genera. A 1995 study estimated the total number at 3,400, though many may not be preserved as fossils. On average, 2 new genera and at least 30 new species are currently added each year. Compared to their closest relatives within the Archosauria, such as Lagosuchus, Scleromochlus, and the pterosaurs, members of all dinosaur groups exhibit a number of shared derived characteristics, synapomorphies. Skull characteristics. The postfrontal bone is absent. In the palate, the ectopterygoid overlaps the pterygoid. The head of the quadrate is laterally exposed. Reduction of the posttemporal fenestra, a posterior skull opening. Postcranial skeleton. Skeleton excluding the skull. Shoulder joint socket is oriented posteriorly. The hand is asymmetrical with shortened outer fingers, IV and V, which are entirely absent in more advanced theropods. The tibia has a crest-like elevation, menial crest, on the front upper end. The astragalus, an ankle bone, has an upward extending process. The central metatarsal, to which toe 3 attaches, is S-shaped. While primitive dinosaurs show all these traits, the bone structure of later forms can differ significantly, so some of the listed features may no longer be present or identifiable. In addition, there are various other traits shared by many dinosaurs that are not considered synapomorphies, as they are also found in some non-dinosaurs or not consistently among early dinosaurs. These include elongated scapula, shoulder blade, 3 or more sacral vertebrae in the pelvic region, 3 found in some other archosaurs, but only 2 in Herrerasaurus, a perforated open hip socket, closed in Saturnalia. In dinosaurs, the legs were positioned vertically beneath the body, similar to most mammals, but unlike most other reptiles, whose legs splay outward in a sprawling gait. This upright stance enabled dinosaurs to breathe more easily while moving, likely allowing for endurance and activity levels that surpassed those of reptiles with sprawled limbs. Additionally, the straight-legged posture may have facilitated the evolution of gigantism, as it helped reduce stress on the limbs. Paleontologists gain knowledge about dinosaurs primarily through the study of fossils, with bones playing a particularly important role. These provide critical data on evolutionary relationships, anatomy and body structure, biomechanics, and more. Further insights, especially into dinosaur behavior, are offered by trace fossils, including bite marks on prey bones, skin impressions, tail prints, and most commonly, fossilized footprints, which are by far the most frequent trace fossils. These traces allow scientists to study dinosaurs from a different angle, since the animal was alive when the traces were made, whereas bones always come from deceased individuals. Additional information is gleaned from fossilized eggs and nests, coprolites, fossilized feces, and gastroliths, stomach stones swallowed by some dinosaurs to aid in digesting food. For a long time, many scientists suspected that dinosaurs formed a polyphyletic group consisting of unrelated archosaurs. Today, however, dinosaurs are recognized as a distinct group. The earliest dinosaurs likely emerged as early as the Middle Triassic, about 245 million years ago, evolving from primitive members of the Avimenitatarsalian ornithodairan lineage of archosaurs. This is supported by evidence from the East African Nyasasaurus, which is considered either the earliest known dinosaur or the closest known relative of dinosaurs. The fossils of the oldest undisputed dinosaurs, Eoraptor and Herrerasaurus, come from the roughly 230 million-year-old late Triassic Ischigualasto Formation in Argentina. Eoraptor is regarded as the most primitive known dinosaur and probably resembled the common ancestor of all dinosaurs. Thus, the first dinosaurs were likely small, bipedal carnivores. This view is supported by finds of primitive, dinosaur-like ornithodairans such as Marasuchus and Lagerpeton. Though these genera are classified outside the Dinosauria, they were probably closely related to the common ancestor of all dinosaurs. When the first dinosaurs appeared, the niches of terrestrial ecosystems were already occupied by various primitive archosaurs and therapsids, including adasaurs, cynodonts, dicynodonts, ornithosuchids, rauisuchians, and rhynchosaurs. Most of these groups became extinct during the Triassic. For instance, a mass extinction occurred at the transition from the Carnian to the Norian stage, which saw the disappearance of dicynodonts and several basal archosauromorphs, such as Prolocertiforms and Rhynchosaurs. Another major extinction followed at the boundary between the Triassic and Jurassic, during which most other early archosaur groups, like Adasaurs, Ornithosuchids, Phytosaurs, and Rauisuchians, died out. These losses left a terrestrial fauna composed of crocodilomorphs, dinosaurs, mammals, pterosaurs, and turtles. Early dinosaurs likely filled the ecological niches vacated by the extinct groups. Previously, it was believed that dinosaurs gradually outcompeted these older groups, but this theory is now considered unlikely for several reasons. The number of dinosaurs did not increase gradually, as would be expected if they had displaced other groups over time. Instead, their population comprised just 1 to 2% of the fauna during the Carnian, yet rose dramatically to 50 to 90% in the Norian after certain older groups had gone extinct. Moreover, the upright posture, long considered a key adaptation of dinosaurs, was also present in other contemporary groups that were not as successful, such as Adasaurs, Ornithosuchids, Rauisuchians, and some crocodilomorphs. Dinosaurs are placed within the superorder Diapsida, as are most modern reptiles. Diapsids differ from synapsids, from which mammals evolved, and anapsids by having 2 pairs of skull openings behind the eyes. Within the Diapsida, dinosaurs belong to the Archosauria, ruling reptiles, which are further distinguished by 2 additional skull openings. Living members of this group include crocodiles and birds. Traditionally, dinosaurs are divided into 2 orders: Saurischia, lizard-hipped dinosaurs, and Ornithischia, bird-hipped dinosaurs, primarily distinguished by pelvic structure. The Saurischia retain the ancestral hip configuration and are characterized by pubis and ischium bones projecting in different directions, whereas in Ornithischia, both bones run parallel and diagonally backward. Dinosaur evolution after the Triassic was shaped by changes in vegetation and continental arrangement. During the late Triassic and early Jurassic, all continents formed the supercontinent Pangaea, resulting in a globally homogeneous dinosaur fauna composed mainly of carnivorous coelophysoids and herbivorous prosauropods. Gymnosperm plants, especially conifers, spread widely in the late Triassic and served as a potential food source. Prosauropods could not process plant material orally and had to rely on other methods of food breakdown within their digestive systems. The uniformity of dinosaur faunas continued into the middle and late Jurassic. Among carnivorous theropods, ceratosaurs, spinosaurids, and carnosaurs were dominant. Among herbivores, stegosaurs, ornithischians, and sauropods were widespread. Important and well-known faunas of the late Jurassic include those of the Morrison Formation in North America and the Tendaguru beds in Tanzania. Faunas from China already show some differences, such as the specialized synraptorids among the carnivores and unusual long-necked sauropods like Mamenchisaurus among the herbivores. Ankylosaurs and ornithopods became increasingly widespread, while prosauropods went extinct. Conifers and other plant groups such as ferns and horsetails were the dominant vegetation. Unlike prosauropods and sauropods, ornithischians developed mechanisms that allowed food to be processed in the mouth. Cheek-like structures kept the food in place, and jaw movements helped grind it. During the early Cretaceous, the breakup of Pangaea continued, leading to increasingly distinct dinosaur faunas on different continents. Ankylosaurs, iguanodonts, and brachiosaurids spread across Europe, North America, and North Africa. Later, especially in Africa, large theropods like Spinosaurids and Carcharodontosaurids appeared, and sauropod groups such as Rebbachisaurids and Titanosaurs gained prominence. In Asia, Maniraptorans, including Dromaeosaurids, Troodontids, and Oviraptorosaurs, became common. Ankylosaurs and early ceratopsians like Psittacosaurus were important herbivores. Meanwhile, Australia became home to primitive ankylosaurs, Hypsilophodonts, and iguanodonts. Stegosaurs apparently went extinct during the late early Cretaceous or early late Cretaceous. A major shift in the early Cretaceous was the emergence of flowering plants. Around the same time, several herbivorous groups developed dental batteries composed of stacked replacement teeth. Ceratopsians used these batteries for slicing, while hadrosaurids used them primarily for grinding. Some sauropods also developed dental batteries, most notably Nigersaurus. During the late Cretaceous, there were 3 major dinosaur faunas. In North America and Asia, tyrannosaurs and various smaller Maniraptoran types dominated the carnivores. The herbivores were mostly ornithischians, consisting of hadrosaurids, ceratopsians, ankylosaurs, and pachycephalosaurs. In the southern continents, abelisaurids were the leading predators and titanosaurs the dominant herbivores. Europe's fauna included dromaeosaurids, rhabdodontids, iguanodontia, nodosaurids, ankylosauria, and titanosaurs. Flowering plants continued to spread, and the first grasses appeared by the end of the Cretaceous. Hadrosaurids, which ground their food, and ceratopsians, which merely sliced it, became highly diverse and abundant in North America and Asia near the end of the period. Meanwhile, some theropods evolved into herbivores or omnivores, such as therizinosaurs and ornithomimosaurs. One of the earliest dinosaurs considered a bird in the broad sense, Archaeopteryx, lived during the late Jurassic in Central Europe. It probably evolved from early representatives of the Maniraptorans, a group of bird-like theropods from the relatively modern subgroup Coelurosauria. Archaeopteryx exhibits a mosaic of bird and non-avian theropod traits, resembling the latter so closely that at least one fossil specimen lacking clear feather impressions was mistakenly classified as Compsognathus, a small non-avian dinosaur. Although the first nearly complete specimen of Archaeopteryx was discovered in 1861, the idea that birds descended from dinosaurs, or that they were part of the dinosaur group, only gained broad acceptance much later, after being revived by John Ostrom in 1970. To this day, numerous anatomical similarities between theropod dinosaurs and Archaeopteryx have been identified. These similarities are particularly evident in the structure of the cervical vertebrae, the pubis, the wrist, the shoulder girdle, the furcula, wishbone, and the sternum. Starting in the 1990s, a series of feathered coelurosaurid theropods were discovered, providing additional evidence for the close relationship between dinosaurs and birds. Most of these finds come from the Jehol group in northeastern China, a thick sequence of sediments renowned for its exceptionally well-preserved fossils. Some representatives discovered in the Jehol group, featuring down-like feathers, protofeathers, are relatively primitive coelurosaurians, not closely related to birds, such as the Compsognathids Sinosauropteryx, the Therizinosauriid Bapiosaurus, and the Tyrannosauroids Dailong and Utyrannus. The latter, based on current knowledge as of June 2015, is by far the largest known feathered dinosaur, originating from the Yixian Formation, Barremian to early Aptian, of Liaoning Province. This indicates that primitive feathers appear to be an ancestral trait of theropods, or at least of coelurosaurians, and suggests that many other theropods, known today only from skeletal remains, were likely feathered in life, though their plumage was not fossilized. The fact that the Jehol group sediments were deposited in the early Cretaceous, geologically younger than the Solnhofen limestone and Archaeopteryx, does not change this conclusion. Finds of feathered dinosaurs are generally rare, likely because soft tissues like skin and feathers fossilize only under exceptionally favorable conditions, such as those present in the Jehol sediments and the Solnhofen limestone. Many of the non-avian feathered dinosaurs in the Jehol group are therefore likely the oldest preserved feathered representatives of their evolutionary lines, even though all older members of those lines, and their common ancestors, probably also had feathers. The contour feathers typical of modern birds, however, are found only in members of the Coelurosaurian subgroup Maniraptora, which includes oviraptorosaurs, troodontids, dromaeosaurids, and birds. Protofeathers likely originally evolved for thermal insulation, while contour feathers developed specifically for visual communication among members of the same species. Their role in generating lift for powered flight or gliding was a later evolutionary development. In Microraptor guy, a chicken-sized dinosaur from the Jehol group, not only the arms and hands, but also the legs were equipped with wings made of contour feathers. It is believed that Microraptor used these forewings to glide from tree to tree. However, despite being geologically younger than Archaeopteryx, Microraptor is not considered a bird. Its bird-like appearance is instead the result of convergent evolution within Maniraptora. Nonetheless, the Jehol group also yielded Jeholornis, an early true bird. That Microraptor is not classified as a bird is not because it could only glide, but due to its skeletal anatomy, which identifies it as a dromaeosaurid. The flight abilities of Archaeopteryx remain subject to debate. One hypothesis on the evolution of flight in true birds suggests it developed from gliding. Thus, the ancestors of Archaeopteryx, possibly even Archaeopteryx itself, may have also been gliders. Although dinosaurs varied greatly in size, as a group they were large. One estimate places the average dinosaur's weight between 1 and 10 tons, whereas the average mammal of the Cenozoic weighed only about 2 to 5 kilograms. Some dinosaurs were gigantic, especially the long-necked sauropods, which included the largest terrestrial animals in Earth's history. According to Cope's rule, there is a general evolutionary trend toward increasing body size within animal lineages, driven by inter- and intraspecific competition. However, this alone does not explain the unprecedented gigantism of dinosaurs in Earth and evolutionary history. This raises the question of both why these animals grew so large and how they achieved such sizes. Regarding the why, it is assumed that sauropods benefited digestively from their massive growth. Since they did not chew their tough plant food, a prolonged retention in an extensive digestive tract allowed for more efficient nutrient extraction compared to smaller herbivores. This could have enabled them to specialize in very nutrient-poor vegetation. As for the how, a bird-like air sac system, including pneumatized, air-filled bones, especially in the skulls of large theropods, may have supported the development of gigantism. In sauropods, not chewing their food also meant saving on jaw musculature, which allowed for a proportionally small and lightweight head. This in turn permitted long necks, which may have been subject to sexual selection. Males with longer necks possibly had greater reproductive success, a form of intraspecific competition. Additionally, for sauropods to gain up to 30 tons within 20 years, their metabolic rates as juveniles must have been very high, similar to those of birds or mammals, but would have declined steadily with increasing body size to prevent overheating. Determining which dinosaurs were truly the largest or smallest may never be possible with certainty. Fossil evidence is often incomplete, and few species are known from full skeletons, especially those assumed to have reached exceptional sizes, which are typically represented only by fragmented remains. Paleontologists can estimate size by comparing bone shape and size to better-known species, but this remains imprecise. Estimating weight is even more difficult, as it depends on reconstructed models with muscles and tendons, whose placement must be inferred from muscle attachment sites on bones. The largest and heaviest dinosaur known from well-preserved skeletal remains is the sauropod Brachiosaurus, also known as Giraffatitan. A composite skeleton assembled from similarly sized individuals is on display at the Museum of Natural History in Berlin. It stands over 13 meters tall and spans more than 23 meters in length. Such an animal likely weighed between 30 and 60 tons. The longest dinosaur known from a complete skeleton is Diplodocus, with one specimen measuring 27 meters in length. Even larger sauropods are known only from fragmented bones. One of the potential contenders for the largest dinosaur is Argentinosaurus, which is sometimes estimated to have weighed up to 100 tons. Diplodocus hallorum, formerly Seismosaurus, at 33.5 meters, and Supersaurus, at around 33 meters, may rank among the longest dinosaurs. There were also giants among the carnivorous dinosaurs. The largest theropod known from nearly complete skeletal finds is Tyrannosaurus rex, at about 12 meters long. However, there are fossil fragments suggesting that other genera may have been even larger. The largest known theropod may have been Spinosaurus, estimated at 16 to 18 meters in length and weighing around 8 tons. Other very large theropods include Giganotosaurus, Maposaurus, and Carcharodontosaurus. The smallest dinosaurs were the size of a chicken. For example, the theropods Microraptor and Parvicursor were both less than 60 centimeters long. These smaller dinosaurs were almost exclusively carnivorous. Conclusions about dinosaur behavior are drawn from the posture of fossil skeletons, trace fossils like fossilized footprints, the habitats in which the animals lived, biomechanical computer simulations, and comparisons with modern animals occupying similar ecological niches. Many behavioral hypotheses are still debated in the scientific literature. However, over time, an increasingly broad range of behavioral assumptions has gained consensus among researchers. The discovery of a mass grave of iguanodon in Bernissart, Belgium, in 1878 provided one of the first clues that some dinosaurs lived in herds. Today, many more signs of herding behavior are known across various dinosaur species. Alongside further mass graves, numerous parallel trackways have also been found. Hadrosaurids are believed to have migrated in large herds, similar to modern springboks or American bison. For example, a Maiasaura mass grave in Montana, USA, contains the remains of at least 10,000 individuals. Sauropod footprints from Oxford, England, suggest that these dinosaurs may have traveled in mixed species herds. Dinosaur herding behavior may have served purposes such as protection against predators, shielding of juveniles, or seasonal migration. Some carnivorous dinosaurs are also often portrayed as social, potentially hunting larger prey together as a group. However, group hunting is uncommon in their closest living relatives, birds and crocodiles. And alleged evidence of cooperative hunting in theropods like Deinonychus and Allosaurus might instead reflect fatal confrontations between feeding individuals, a behavior often observed in modern reptiles. A nesting colony of Maiasaura discovered by Jack Horner in 1978 in Montana suggests that some dinosaurs cared for their young well after hatching. In 1993, the skeleton of the oviraptorid Citipodi was found in Mongolia in a brooding position over its eggs. This could indicate the presence of insulating feathers that kept the eggs warm. Other finds also point toward parental care. For instance, an adult Ceratopsian Psittacosaurus was discovered in Liaoning, China, alongside 34 juveniles. The high number of offspring may indicate that the adult was caring for young from multiple individuals, similar to communal rearing seen in modern ostriches. The Aucamahuevo site in Patagonia yielded thousands of eggs attributed to sauropods, suggesting large nesting colonies comparable to those of modern penguins. However, sauropods likely did not engage in parental care, especially given the enormous size difference between adults and hatchlings. The diverse crests and shields of some dinosaurs, such as marginocephalians, theropods, and lambeosaurines, were probably too fragile for active defense. More likely, they served as displays for mating or intimidation of rivals. Still, little is known about dinosaur courtship and territorial behavior. Bite marks found on the skulls of some theropods suggest aggressive confrontations were at least occasional among these species. Dinosaur communication remains mysterious, but is an active area of research. Recent studies, for instance, have shown that the cranial crests of lambeosaurines may have functioned as resonating chambers to amplify a wide range of vocalizations. A fossil of a troodontid from China revealed that this small theropod tucked its head under its arms while sleeping to keep it warm, similar to modern birds. One of the most valuable fossils for behavioral research was discovered in 1971 in the Gobi Desert and features a velociraptor attacking a protoceratops, showing the animals almost in lifelike interaction. Further evidence of predation comes from a partially healed tail injury in Edmontosaurus, a hadrosaur whose tail had been bitten by a tyrannosaurus, but the animal survived. Cannibalism has also been documented in theropods such as Majungasaurus, with bite marks discovered in Madagascar in 2003. Let me know if you'd like this. New finds such as Eryctodromius suggest that some herbivorous species may have lived in underground burrows, while bird-like species may have been tree dwellers, such as Microraptor and the enigmatic Scansoriopterygids. Most dinosaurs, however, moved about on the ground. A strong understanding of locomotion is key to behavioral research, and biomechanics has led to major advancements in this field. Studies on muscle forces and the load on skeletal structures have helped estimate how fast dinosaurs could run. Other investigations explored whether diplodocids could produce sonic booms with their tails, or whether sauropods could swim. Scrape marks in lake sediments have proven that some theropods were capable swimmers. Around 66 million years ago, a global mass extinction occurred, eliminating an estimated 50% of all genera and 20% of all families, including all non-avian dinosaurs. A wide range of hypotheses have been proposed to explain the causes. The most widely supported theories point to an asteroid impact and/or intensified volcanism, and some include both events. The rapid fall in sea level may also have contributed, as large shallow seas vanished and land bridges formed. In a thin, dark clay layer at the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, physicist Luis Walter Alvarez and geologist Walter Alvarez discovered an enrichment of iridium, a heavy metal rare in Earth's crust. See the iridium anomaly. In their study published in June 1980, they proposed that the iridium had been deposited by an asteroid impact that triggered the mass extinction. This hypothesis was supported in 1991 by the discovery of the 180-kilometer-wide Chicxulub crater at the edge of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, formed at the right time by the impact of a roughly 10-kilometer-wide asteroid. The short and medium-term consequences for Earth's ecosystems have been extensively debated. These likely included an intense initial atmospheric heating, firestorm, followed by significant cooling due to dust blocking sunlight, reducing solar radiation insolation by 10 to 20% for several years, nuclear winter, which impaired photosynthesis in land plants and unicellular marine algae, the primary producers in terrestrial and marine ecosystems. Additional consequences of the impact likely included severe earthquakes and tsunamis, occurring thousands of kilometers from the impact site. Some extinction hypotheses specifically consider the fact that the asteroid struck a carbonate shelf platform. Today, the sediment layers in the vicinity of the Chicxulub crater contain rich petroleum deposits, which likely existed already at the end of the Cretaceous. Based on isotope studies of organic carbon from sediments at the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, one theory suggests that large amounts of petroleum may have ignited as a result of the impact. The soot produced in the impact is believed to have risen into the stratosphere and spread globally. This, rather than the fine rock dust ejected from the impact crater, is considered the main cause of the post-impact global darkening and cooling. Because the massive sedimentary layers of the Yucatan carbonate platform also contain anhydrite and gypsum, calcium sulfate, CaSO source, the heat from the impact may have generated large quantities of sulfur dioxide, SO2, and sulfur trioxide, SO3, leading to acid raining worldwide in the weeks and months following the event. This would have caused acidification of soils and water bodies, significantly worsening conditions for plants and algae. Using a computer-based climate model, researchers found that it was not dust or soot, but mainly long-lived sulfuric acid aerosols in the atmosphere that likely caused a drop of at least 26 degrees Celsius in average annual global surface temperatures in the months after the impact. As a result, Earth entered a multi-year, nearly global period of persistent freezing, with dramatic effects on both terrestrial and marine life. Evidence supporting the volcanic theory includes the massive Deccan Traps volcanic activity on India's Deccan Plateau, which released at least 2 million cubic kilometers of basalt, flood basalt. In addition to reduced solar radiation, large volumes of carbon dioxide may have entered the atmosphere, resulting in a powerful greenhouse effect. A more recent study links the Chicxulub impact directly to the Deccan Traps volcanism. According to this hypothesis, the long, simmering Deccan Traps reached a new peak in activity due to the energy released by the impact, estimated at no less than 3.10 square joules, which triggered tectonic shockwaves. This hypothesis claims that the geologically brief yet prolonged outpouring of 70% of all Deccan Trap basalts extending into the Paleogene was caused by that event. The actual extinction likely occurred over a relatively short time span and, at least in North America, instantaneously by geological standards. Although some dinosaur bones have been found in Cenozoic strata dated to 64.5 million years ago, and were interpreted by some researchers as evidence of a slow extinction, this theory has been strongly disputed. Critics argue that the bones eroded from older Mesozoic deposits and were re-embedded in younger layers. The far more contentious question is whether dinosaurs were already in decline at the end of the Cretaceous, or still thriving. Research has suggested that the rate of new species formation had fallen below the background extinction rate as early as 50 million years before the end of the period. Exceptions to this gradual decline in biodiversity include hadrosaurids and ceratopsians, specialized herbivores that continued to generate many new species in the latest Cretaceous. Despite these exceptions, it appears dinosaurs as a group may have been relatively vulnerable to a global catastrophe. On the other hand, some researchers argue that the observed decline in fossil diversity is due instead to deteriorating fossil preservation conditions during the final stages of the Cretaceous, Campanian to Maastrichtian. Therefore, the actual species diversity during this period, at least in North America, has likely been underestimated. That's it for now. In the next video, we'll continue exploring the connections between Marowak and all the bird Pokemon. Feel free to subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and check back next time.